Week 9 in the books as the Kansas City Chiefs hang on, escape not only Mahomes' injury, but win in overtime against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we have trades on the verge of the NFL trading deadline. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love hanging out with you guys, talking ball, and we've got a good one today because one of the most eventful days of the NFL season with the trade deadline happening and many moves already going on this morning as we head toward the trade deadline. And appreciate all the new listeners as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right, Matt, let's start with the Monday Night Football game and get that out of the way. Right. Week 9 in the books as we head toward Week 10. And another Houdini job for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs offensively. The defense has been steady Eddie for multiple seasons now. Helped them to get to where they need to go last year. And then Mahomes makes enough plays in the end to win the game. And we saw it in the Super Bowl. And we've seen it just about every single week of the season as the Chiefs are now 8-0. And you thought maybe they're done in. Patrick Mahomes even hobbles off the field. He walks back on the field like there was no injury. I thought he was done, right? We're like, oh, he might be done for the season. Oh, Carson Wentz is going to have the rest of the year. And it's 5 minutes later. I don't know how many real-time minutes it was. He walks back on the field. It didn't look like he was hurt at all. It's almost like pro wrestling style, like Vince McMahon's writing the storyline here in some ways for you think they're out, they're not out. And then I think in the end, in this 30-24 win for the Kansas City Chiefs, they go down the field and score a touchdown in overtime, and Tampa Bay doesn't even get the ball. So I guess we've got to start with the decision to not go for 2 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Did you think that was where they lost the game?
Yeah, let's start there. I thought it was really bad, to be honest with you, and here's why. First off, I've said this before. Todd Bowles and I were on the Browns staff together. We're not friends or anything. We were only there a year, and we all got fired. And so I kind of root for him, and I think he's one of the best defensive minds on the planet. Now, I think he's an okay head coach, but I don't think he's a great head coach, and I don't think he's a great game manager. And I understand the logic of, hey, it's a coin flip if we go to, overtime. Sure, I get that, but when it was all said and done, and this includes overtime, Kansas City held the ball for 40-42. Tampa held the ball for 25-10. Much of regulation, obviously. They had 28 first downs to 17 for Tampa. They ran 83 plays compared to 52 for Tampa. And where I'm going with this is I think Coach Bowles needs to realize when the clock hits 0 in regulation that my defense has been on the field too much already, and this is Pat freaking Mahomes, and I'm pretty helpless. You can blitz them all you want or scheme it up all you want, but your guys are pretty shot. And if you lose the coin flip, I think it's a foregone conclusion you lose. And to me, that's not good enough odds.
That's one of the things I didn't factor in real time was just a tired defense. And it did look tired in that game. And that's difficult. And that changes the odds and changes things from whatever the, analytics guy tells you the best percentages are. And you have to factor more things in than just that because it might change those percentages. The one reason why I'm on Todd Bowles' side with not going for 2 is because of the time on the clock. If there was 0 seconds, if this was the last play of the game, or there's just 7 seconds left on the clock, something like that, and I would say you got to go for 2 here. You got to try to win the game. But the problem I have with going for 2 there is that there's multiple ways to still lose the game in regulation. First of all, if you don't get the 2, you go over and you lose. And so I say go for 2 if you get 2 and you win and it's game over. But it wasn't game over. You go for 2, now you're up 1 point. There's still plenty of time with 3 timeouts for the Kansas City Chiefs to go down and kick a field goal and still beat you. So you don't win the game by getting the 2. So there was still another opportunity for the Chiefs to beat you in regulation with 30 seconds left in the game.
With a field goal.
Yeah, with a field goal, and they don't have to go that far to go get a field goal. And again, this is Mahomes, so you're kind of damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. In hindsight, they probably still should have gone for 2, and tried to get that stopped because that's easier than stopping Mahomes from going down and scoring with 10 minutes left on the clock and in the overtime period. But then you still have to lose that coin flip, and then you still have to, So I don't think it was an egregious decision. In hindsight, probably still the wrong decision. Try to go win it and be aggressive, but the game wouldn't have ended with making the 2-point conversion, which is why I'm okay with Todd Bowles' decision. I think he was kind of screwed either way, basically, now that we look back on it.
And to back up your side of it, and I see both sides, I don't think it's an egregious decision. What would have been your play call on the 2-point conversion? You don't have Mike Evans. You don't have Godwin. I mean, you were doing good things, but I'm sure they're going to do everything to take Otten away. Sterling Shepard kind of stepped up, but that's the other thing the analytic folks don't think about. You should go for it on 4th and 2 at midfield. Yeah, but what play am I calling?
Yeah,
I can't block the left guard. I can't block Chris Jones. Right?
This specific offense against this specific defense in this situation. And when you asked that question, I was just like Kate Otten, and of course,
right.
Steve Spagnuolo was like, we got to stop Kate Otten. Right? So then now what we got, and actually that leads me to another one. If you're the Kansas City Chiefs, what do? Well, you throw a slant to DeAndre Hopkins, which is what they utilized to score a touchdown in this game. And so clearly DeAndre Hopkins is a fantastic fit for the way Patrick Mahomes plays the Kansas City Chiefs. And you see that and you see him score a couple touchdowns. You're like, oh my gosh, how'd the league let him get a free DeAndre Hopkins essentially?
It's funny. I almost tweeted the same thing. Everyone lost their mind. How did the league let Xavier Worthy go to the Chiefs? Oh my gosh, it's in cahoots. Roger Goodell is fixing this thing, and I'm out there. I'm sitting there watching Hopkins. I'm like, how'd they let that happen? I mean, I'm like, I'm texting my buddies. I'm like, shouldn't the Steelers give him 1 round more for this guy? No matter what, and he's running in-breaking routes like he's Rashee Rice or Juju Smith-Schuster. It doesn't matter. And a couple other fantasy nuggets here. Kate Otten is legit. I mean, he was really impressive, and he's running Chris Godwin routes out there. And Kelsey at 14 targets. Hunt won't go away. And the Chiefs just win their brand. They're great on 3rd downs. They converted their 4th down conversion. They're the best success rate in the league. They have no explosives, but they get, if it's 3rd and 7, they get 8. If it's 2nd and 2, they get 3. Over and over and over. And I'm watching that game last night and sipping a cocktail going, man, the Lions are really good, and so are the Ravens, but this is still the team to beat. This defense is loaded. They got a lot of weapons. The O-line's strong. They're really good.
And with the Bucs, and this is probably another reason why you say go for it. You're on the road. You're undermanned if you're the Tampa Bay Bucs, and this is where I think they're going to fade a little bit here, even though they've been really competitive. And you actually have to give Todd Bowles credit for being in this game, and it's tied after regulation because they don't have their top weapons on offense. Kate Otten's their leading receiver. You're not going to go into a season being like, cool, we have Bucky Irving, Kate Otten, and Sterling Shepard. Let's go win a Super Bowl, right?
We're loaded.
That's not the case. And even just going to Kansas City and winning at their house and trying to win a football game. And their defense, I think, is a little undermanned. They've got some good players, but overall, the defense not playing great. So maybe that's why you got to go for 2, get out of here and try to steal this win. But I do think
kind of playing with house money at that point.
Yes, yeah. And I do think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are kind of going to fade down the stretch here, and we'll see if Mike Evans comes back. But they're not in the greatest situation here, but they're still competitive, and so good on them for that. I have one more note here on Patrick Mahomes, and because it always seems like he just makes the plays when he needs to win the game, and it's like that's going to go on his tombstone at this point. I want to point out too, Bill Barnwell put the Chiefs passing EPA. So EPA is essentially an efficiency number for a statistic for offenses for those folks that don't know. And they're ranked on 1st down passing. They're ranked 22nd in the NFL, bottom 3rd in the league passing efficiency on 1st downs. On second downs, a little better, 19th, but still bottom half of the league in second down passing efficiency. Third down, what would you guess the Chiefs are in third down passing efficiency?
The best.
Number one. And there's number one by so far that second place is actually closer to 11th than they are to first place. And if it seems like Patrick Mahomes always just kind of comes up with the right play at the right time to score when they need it, to get a first down when they need it, it's because it's exactly what's happening.
Yep. And I referenced success rate. I just wanted to double check it because it's similar. What success rate is, if it's 1st and 10, if you get 4 or more, that's considered a successful play. Second and whatever, if you get half the distance. If it's 2nd and 2 and you only get 1, still a successful play. If it's 2nd and 12 and you get 6, successful play. On 3rd or 4th down, it's converting, even if it's 3rd and 100, So Kansas City's offense is 9th in EPA overall. Quite good. It's behind some really respectable offenses, but 1st in success rate, right ahead of Baltimore. They just get enough on every down. I mean, and both those stats really reflect that. One other nugget I want to throw out there, just in terms of like game management, it's a general thing. So they kicked the extra point, tie the game. And there was less than a minute, but 3 timeouts and something like that, right?
It was like 30 seconds and 3 timeouts. Yeah.
Head coaches do this all the time, so I'm not picking on Todd Bowles. And I know the kickoff rule's a little different now, but it makes me crazy when you kick off with a situation like that and just blast it out of the end zone and don't let the clock start. Just make somebody return and knock 10 seconds off.
Yeah. It's more likely that you waste time and make it harder for them to score than you make it easy for them to score because they're going to return it all the way.
Right.
Score.
I mean, it might happen and then you kick yourself. But, I mean, I'll take the 8 seconds or whatever in that situation.
In the rare event that they do have a big return, then everyone's like, how
the media. Right.
So, again, Todd Bowles, feel bad for him. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, I think, in that.
And then the bottom line, the big winners might be the Falcons. They look around the division like they're falling like flies. Yeah.
Pretty right now. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Let's talk trades. Trade deadline is nearly upon us. So we've got a lot of moves already on this Tuesday morning to get into next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets like you might find if you're trying to go see your favorite NFL team play or go see a college football game or maybe NHL, hockey, whatever it is. Those sports arenas have tons of seats. So Game Time Picks makes it a lot easier. But you know what? You can get tickets to concerts and comedy shows as well, and you can find fantastic deals, especially on last-minute tickets. Right up to the start of the event, even an hour after an event starts, you can find fantastic deals at Game Time. Exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, zone deals where they pick the section and you pick the section, they pick the seats to help you have even more big savings. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. And when you're hanging out watching ball, you might want to get involved in some of the action that's happening on the field, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, hockey. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you want to check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more. It's all on the same page where you place your bets on the FanDuel app or FanDuel.com. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, still some more trades to come as we are a few hours shy of the NFL trade deadline as of this recording, and we'll break all of it down on tomorrow's episode of Peacock and Williamson, so make sure you subscribe. And we do have a flurry of activity, though, here on this Tuesday morning, And I guess I want to start here with the Dallas Cowboys, because this is interesting and somewhat head scratching to a lot of folks out there, because not only did the Dallas Cowboys make a trade and add a player, they also put their quarterback, Dak Prescott, on IR. And it's hard to figure out where the Cowboys are going right now, kind of spinning their wheels, but making a move and adding Carolina Panthers second-year wide receiver Jonathan Mingo. They bring a 7th rounder back with Mingo and send a 2025 4th round pick to the Carolina Panthers for the wide receiver. Do the Dallas Cowboys make some sense out of the Dallas Cowboys right now for me, Matt?
Yeah, in 2 seconds, I just want to preface one thing, just trade deadline oriented, is everyone knows there's 32 teams in the league. 0 of those 32 teams have 0 or 1 win. So the worst records in the league right now are 2 losses. But there's 9 teams with 2 losses right now. I mean, a huge percentage of the league stinks, to be frank. I mean, more than I can even remember. Maybe I say that every year. I don't know. But it sure seems like there are a lot of bad teams.
In the parity era, this is a strange year where there's a clear, like, bottom third of teams with only 2 wins. And there's a clear top third of teams. And then there's a middle group of teams where you could make some arguments that they're good or bad. But I can't remember it being this top and bottom heavy, especially bottom heavy in the recent era of NFL football.
Which brings me to Dallas. So Dallas, even plus Parsons minus Dak, if we do that simple math equation, to me is not amongst the 9 stinkos, but they're also not the middle class either. They're still a below average team and not a contender.
They're one tiny step.
Right.
Stinkos.
right. I mean, without Dak, I mean, that's where we're going here. Now, to pull back the curtain, we're recording this on the noon Eastern hour on Tuesday. So there could be more to happen, because when I saw this deal, I thought they must be trading Brandon Cooks. You know, like the Steelers on the phone with Brandon Cooks. You know, not that he's supposed to super attractive, but that would be a logical move. Swap Cooks out for Mingo, get younger. You probably loved them in the draft. But I still thought they gave up too much for him, and Carolina should be thrilled with this move.
I think it's a good deal for the Carolina Panthers. I'm not killing the Cowboys as much as some folks, because they're looking at this as, why are the Cowboys adding at the deadline? This is a long-term move.
Yeah,
so
this isn't a rental.
Year move. He's only in year 2 of a 4-year rookie contract, so he's cheap. Clearly, they're a team, and Dane Brugler talked about this today. I saw a tweet where he said, teams were really split on Jonathan Mingo because he was an interesting prospect coming out of Ole Miss. Yeah. And some teams had him as a 3rd, 4th round, mid-round guy. And some teams had him in the top 50. Cowboys, one of those teams that had him at a really high grade, as the Carolina Panthers did, because they drafted him, mid-second round.
Totally adds up. And you haven't seen enough from him to totally trash him yet.
And the Panthers screwed Mingo up, too. Like, the scouting report was easy on Mingo. He's not put him outside, he's going to win through route running, through the natural progressions of your offense type of receiver. He was 6'2", 220, good after the catch, a power player, a power slot, reminding me of some combination of, like, usage-wise of, like, kind of Deebo Samuel, or, like, remember Mohamed Sanu, where, like, a big power player, but not, like, twitched up winning on the outside. You've got to force the ball into his hands, and you probably but they used him the exact wrong way. So the Cowboys might have looked at this and said, well, you're using this guy wrong anyway. And so I kind of like that from the Cowboys' perspective. Maybe still too much to give up for a guy who's done nothing and is, he's only halfway through his 2nd season and hasn't done a lot, but he's been used completely wrong. So it's probably a great fit for Mingo to go somewhere where a team's like, gosh, you were completely used wrong. And for the Panthers, Jalen Coker's stepped up, and they drafted Xavier Legette, and those guys were, clearly more important to their offense going forward than Jonathan Mingo was going to be. And so bad fit for Mingo in Carolina, better fit potentially if they use him properly. He might not still be good at all, and that happens in the NFL, which is why it might have been too much to give up for the Cowboys. But I'm not going to crush the Cowboys, because this is a move for the future. This is a move for 2025 and 2026. This isn't them, we're buying at the trade deadline because we're going to win without Dak right now.
Yeah, 100%. And Lamb's a little banged up too. It's not a replacement for him. Or I do think there's a chance Cooks gets moved. But I think everything you said spot on. They liked him, saw he was misused. This is going to sound rough, like I hate the guy, but I saw a lot of people coming out of Ole Miss saying, he's a lot like A.J. Brown because he's big and fast and kind of looks like him. I'm like, I see more Laviska Shenault,
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And Shenault has been a player that kind of just didn't,
Right.
and it's hard to find a player and find an offense that really fits that. In the NFL, you need to be able to win in a lot of ways. And so you're limited if you can't win in a lot of ways. And if you're not amazing at the thing, so that's why everyone's like the next Deebo Samuel. And nobody's ever the next Deebo Samuel because he is so good at what he's good at that it doesn't matter if he's not the greatest one-on-one route winner out there. And he's in an offense with an offensive coordinator who knows how to utilize him and get the most out of him, which a lot of offensive coordinators are not. Let's just be honest.
100%. It is really difficult because it's such a tell too. Like if we're going to give him an end around or he's going to get the football. Like, I mean, or, he can't run out routes and beat us. Like two great examples in history are two guys that ended up having great careers, but doing it differently are Devin Hester and Cordero Patterson. Like they were so good with the ball in their hands. They lasted. Hester ended up going to the Hall of Fame, but only as a returner. I mean, people tried him at corner and receiver, and no, you're not any of them. Cordero Patterson became a running back,
return man. It turns out, like,
okay. right. You're just a real Hall of Fame returner.
Got into the Hall of Fame, not being able to play on offense or defense.
Mm-hmm.
One more note quickly on the Cowboys, because they traded a 4th-round pick in a similar move for a guy they liked. And let's check. Let's see if it's something. Let's throw it against the wall and see if it sticks with Trey Lance. And that hasn't bared any fruit for them. But with Dak out, a lot of Cowboys fans are talking about, let's get Lance involved and let's have Lance be a Taysom Hill. You got Cooper Rush as the backup true quarterback. And let's play with this thing like that. And I know you've gone through this in Pittsburgh with conversations about, let's get Justin Fields and his athletic ability, get him on the field. It's easier to say than actually implement as we talk about utilizing pieces and offensive coordinators. And it's kind of hard to do that. And you have to really buy in and want to feature that guy who's the backup quarterback in that sort of a way.
Well, this definitely seems like the opportunity to do it with Field or with Lance, with Dak out. And frankly, Russell Wilson's a lot better than Cooper Rush. You know what I mean? So the odd part, the Taysom Hill of it all is, do you take Drew Brees off the field? Do you take Flacco off the field for a young Lamar? Do you take Wilson off the field for Fields? And the Steelers have basically said no, because a lot of people around here are like, why wouldn't Fields be your goal line quarterback? Well, one of the few things what Wilson does really, really well is red zone passing, so you neutralize that. He throws touchdown passes, so, but that being said, I think Dallas is different. They're not in it, whether they think they are or not. Rush is not that much of an obstacle. Get a Lance package, 8 plays, 1 drive, whatever,
And who knows, maybe get him some needed reps and he turns out to be in the long-term backup or, whatever. But anyway, it's obviously it's not about right now for the Dallas Cowboys. They're cooked.
Yeah, they're cooking. I think they know it.
Za'Darius Smith to the Detroit Lions, probably the most important move we've seen so far at the trade deadline. And the Arizona Cardinals are going for it, Matt. More on the moves that have been made here, approaching the NFL trade deadline next. The final segment of this episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. And it's always nice to have someone to talk to. For me, I talked about this with Eric Crocker, my co-host on Locked On 49ers. Same with you, Matt. It's nice to have someone to talk to every day, on the air, off the air as well. And this month is all about gratitude. And along with the person and people I just shouted out, and I'm sure there's those people in your life, there's another person we don't think enough ourselves. And if you don't have those other people in your life, that's where therapy really comes in, because you got to get it out. You got to talk to somebody. It's sometimes hard to remind ourselves that we're trying our best to make sense of everything. And in this crazy world, that isn't easy. So here's a reminder to send some thanks to the people in your life, including yourself. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched to a licensed therapist, and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Za'Darius Smith has been traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Detroit Lions. And this was rumored to have been happening yesterday, and it didn't happen until Tuesday. And I think there were some other teams involved in Za'Darius Smith, because he was one of the clear players that was and should be available that could absolutely help a football team. And a lot of teams in the NFL, Matt, need some help on the defensive line. And with Aiden Hutchinson going down for the year, the Detroit Lions, as the 1 seed in the NFC, really needed a player like this. And they got a deal done. And I think they maybe had to, in the end, throw an extra pick in on it, because here is the trade. The Detroit Lions send a 2025 5th-round pick and a 2026 6th-round pick to the Cleveland Browns, and they get back Za'Darius Smith and a 2026 7th-round pick. So I think that maybe 2026 pick swap was like the Lions saying, oh, or the Browns are like, hey, other teams are offering the 5th. What else you got, Lions? And they're like, all right, let's do another pick swap then. Let's get this deal done. And in the end, they got it done. Love this move for the Detroit Lions. And, for the Browns as well, get a 5th-round pick, which can end up being a good player for a team that's not going anywhere this year.
Good cheap player, possibly. And that's what it does feel like, is that's the cherry on top. Like, okay, you made a nice Sunday, throw a cherry on top, we got a deal. And it doesn't sound like much, but it really feels like a buyer's market. Maybe I'll change my tune tomorrow if there's big deals that are yet to come. But Deontay Johnson went for nothing. A lot of these guys are really getting traded for nothing. So if you're getting 4th and 5th-round picks in return for the Mingos and Smith and these type of guys on the Junko teams, and especially the Browns that have no cap space going forward and need to free up contracts, I think it's a great deal. And I'm not sure if I was the Browns GM, who would I say is not on the market? I mean, Myles Garrett, I'd initially tell him no. JOK, Tillman, a couple of young, cheap guys. But basically, You could probably get anyone you want. And I think he's a perfect addition for Detroit. I mean, maybe even bring him back and pair him with Hutchinson. He certainly has the Lions' physical run-through-you mentality, too. He's not a finesse player at all.
Yes, yeah, he can set the edge and he can get after the quarterback. Just a really solid, good player to help out that Detroit Lions defense. I like that a lot. How about this though? The Cincinnati Bengals made a trade.
How about that? Yeah,
they made a trade. They added, and it's like not a huge trade or anything, but they got themselves a backup running back. The Cincinnati Bengals send a 7th-round pick in the upcoming draft for Chicago Bears running back Khalil Herbert. He's a player I like. This is, running backs can be had pretty cheap. And so he's really good at getting around the first tackler. He's got some athleticism. He's not the biggest back. He's probably a good pairing for what they have right now in Cincinnati. Khalil Herbert, backup running back now. And apparently the Bengals are active and maybe trying to make another move as well for the defensive side of the ball, which is, the initial thing is like, well, that's the wrong side of the ball that the Bengals need help on. But 7th-rounder for Khalil Herbert, like it.
Yeah, Zach Moss is out for the year, and that's a direct replacement. Brown, I'm sure, will remain the starter, and he got a heavy percentage of the workload, as you would imagine. But Herbert's a good player, as you mentioned, and I'll be honest. I mean, the Bears signed DeAndre Swift like the second free agency opened. And at that point, I gave Herbert like an over-under of a month of lasting with the Browns. I'm like, I didn't know how he lasted this long with the Bears, to be honest with you. He was 3rd back on a team that doesn't need 3 backs. And shouldn't Dallas have traded for him 3 months ago? I just think he's a quality player.
Yeah, he's a solid player. Here's an underrated move. I love the Arizona Cardinals trading for outside backer, edge rusher, Baron Browning. And Browning has had a nice year with the Denver Broncos. It's kind of a weird move for the Broncos to trade a player who's been productive. He's getting high marks from Pro Football Focus. He is maybe a player the Broncos don't use enough or see a good enough role in to worry about not getting a pick for at the trade deadline. But the Broncos are a team that are 5-4 right now, and they're kind of in this thing. So it's weird that they're sending away useful pieces. But for the Cardinals, they need help on defense, and they went and found a cheap player that can help them with the pass rush. 6th-round pick is going to the Denver Broncos for Baron Browning, who's coming off one of his better games. What was it? Was it this week or the week before, where Baron Browning made a big impact for that Broncos defense? But I like this move, and the Cardinals are like, look, we're here and we're in first place right now. We're going for this thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to double check, but this is his contract year. This is his 4th year in the league. He was not a 1st-round pick, so he'll be a free agent after the year. But he also wouldn't be the most difficult guy to keep around in Arizona either. I mean, it's not like he's going to blow up the bank on the open market. But I like him quite a bit. I mean, I guess Denver's basically telling you, we're not really in it. And with Benito and Cooper, they had one too many and figured might as well get a pick now as opposed to waiting for the comp market. And what's funny about the comp market, and that's going to come up a lot with these picks, is you only get one if you don't go crazy signing other people. So if you're planning on being active in free agency, you're not going to get a comp for, Baron Browning or whatever, so they got something. He's worth more than that. He's a good player, and Arizona, especially on their D line, needs everybody they can get, and they manufacture pressure as well with guys like him. I bet he's useful.
Last note before we go here, and there's a few hours before the trade deadline, and of course, we'll have all the rest of it covered for you on tomorrow's episode of Peacock and Williamson. Get those questions in as well for this week's mailbag at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL, or in the YouTube comments. Things are heating up around the New Orleans Saints, potentially trading cornerback Marshon Lattimore, and apparently the Kansas City Chiefs and the Washington Commanders are two teams that are most heavily involved in those talks. That is the latest reporting as we get out of here today. So we might have a big cornerback trade to talk about tomorrow as we get closer to the deadline. And I think that's probably, if there's bigger moves to be had, and I think it's a lot easier for teams to make these moves early when the asking price isn't high and you're doing pick swaps and it's super late round picks and it's like, okay, let's get this deal done. But if the compensation's a little heavier, I think those are the deals we're going to see that go right up to the deadline. And Marshon Lattimore might be one of those names.
Yeah, he's a desirable name that could help a contender win. Kansas City and Washington make all the sense in the world. The Saints are right there with the Browns in terms of who do you want? That's the way I would handle that one. I think I said yesterday, I was on a bunch of different radio shows. I forget which one I said it on, but the Browns, Panthers, and Saints are the most hopeless organizations in all the land right now, but nobody wants any Panthers. The other two teams, maybe they can get some picks, and I would say the Raiders are fourth on my list of most hopeless.
Yeah, those are the bargain shopping outlets that teams are going to right now. I was like, let's see what kind of thing we can go find off of this roster and pluck and go try to win. All right.
Like I'm sure you can get things from Tennessee, but they might look at it differently,
We might have a blockbuster here coming up at the trade deadline, and we have it all covered for you daily on Peacock and Williamson.